Hi all, welcome to Cyber Warfare Labs AWS Cloud Red Team course. In this course, we will discuss about how we can perform red teaming on AWS Cloud environment, how we can misuse different services provided by AWS Cloud, or how we can exploit different misconfigured services within the AWS Cloud. In this course, we will cover each and every phases of red teaming. That means from initial access to data exfiltration, how a red teamers or a attackers or a adversary can perform red teaming in AWS cloud environment. So let's discuss about what are all the things we will cover in this course. So let's discuss about course content. So we divided this course among three different sections. First one is the introductions about AWS Cloud. That means overview, what are the different classification of services we have. Second thing, we'll discuss about different core services provided by AWS and how we can exploit those services. And third section is how we can perform actual red teaming from the initial access to a data exfiltration in AWS cloud environment. So let's discuss each and every section one by one. So first we will discuss about introductions to AWS cloud. Okay. So introductions about AWS cloud is, so AWS means Amazon Web Services. It's a comprehensive evolving cloud computing platform provided by Amazon that include a mixture of infrastructure as a services, platform as a services, as well as software as a services. AWS cloud is further divided among the regions. So regions basically is a physical locations around the world where AWS have a data centers. So regions basically are physical locations. That means AWS have multiple regions across the globe and where they have their own physical data centers. Again, region is divided into availability zone. So basically availability zone is a logical data center which comes from the regions. So you can see here in Amazon we have 77 availability zone within 24 geographic region around the world. That means in Amazon have 24 geographic regions which is divided among 77 availability zone. Let's see what are the difference between regions and availability zone. So you can see here regions is a physical locations of data center. AWS have 77 regions, 24 geographic regions across the globe. It means they have a data center in US, Europe, Asia, and different locations. Those regions is further divided into availability zones. So you can see here there is one region in US East 1, and this region is further divided into 3 availability zones. So first is US East 1A, second one is US East 1B, and third one is US East 1C. So basically availability zone is a logical divisions of the region, which is mainly used for data backup, as well as when some incident is happen, how they can handle all these things. Okay, so second thing we'll discuss about AWS services access. It means how we can access AWS services. So there is multiple way to access AWS cloud services. So it basically AWS cloud services is so they provide a computation services, storage services, and different services there. But how we can access those services? To access those services, we have 3 methods. First, we can access AWS Cloud using a web browser. So they provide a web portal which is accessible or available here in console.aws.amazon.com, and you can access all the services via web browser or web client. Second one, you can access those services using your CLI. So AWS also provide AWS CLI. You can install it and you can access those services using the CLI. And third one is AWS also provide a SDK, software development kit, which contains the APIs. So you can access via programmatically, or you can use any automations tool to access those services using SDK or API, whatever programming language you can prefer it. Okay, so this is how you can access the AWS services. Second thing is AWS Cloud Architecture Overview. So you can see here we have a two sections. One is cloud space and second one is user space. In cloud space, you can see here we divided AWS Cloud among three categories, or we can say three sections. The first one is GUI, that means your web portal. From there you can log in and you can access all services from here. At the backends, they have a control plane as well as the data plane. So only you can see the GUI but not the control plane or the data plane. So control plane is basically where portal or your CLI can accept your request and perform whatever action you want to perform here. At the backend, they will use the computations as well as the storage to do all the operations. Suppose if you run one virtual machines, you can initiate the virtual machines request from your GUI as well as your SDK or API. GUI, when you perform any actions, it will from the GUI it will go to the control plane, and control plane will start a virtual machine in the data plane. Same like if you are using the API, you can directly hit the API endpoint to the control plane, and control plane will start the whatever services you want to start. So this is how it's divided into two sections. So user space is basically how you can access the services. So this is how we divided AWS cloud environment among two categories: user space as well as cloud space. And cloud space furtherly divided into three categories. So they have GUI, which is visible to the users, and two things which will not be visible to the user is control plane and data plane. Control plane, which is control all these things, and data plane where your actual thing is, suppose your storage, computation, everything will be there. So this is how the overview or the architecture of AWS cloud environment. Okay. Third thing, we'll discuss about how we can classify AWS cloud basis of service model. So AWS provide three services model. One is infrastructure as a services, second is platform as a services, and the last one is software as a services. In AWS cloud, when we're talking about infrastructure as a services, so they provide VPC, virtual private cloud. So VPC basically handle your all infrastructure part in cloud environment. Second thing, when we discuss about platform as a services, that means you use a virtual machines to install each and everything on the top of that. You can use EC2. So EC2 is services which will provide platform as a services in AWS environment. And third one is software as a services. So EC2 have a huge number of services. It's like Beanstalk, containers, Lambda, S3, RDS, which is mainly used for providing software as a services. So like that, we divided or we classify AWS clouds among three categories on the basis of service model. Okay, now second thing, we'll discuss about how we can classify AWS services on basis of uses. So first, we discussed already on the basis of model. Now we are discussing about on the basis of uses. So you can see here, there are mainly 5 types of users there in AWS services. The first one is networking, second one is access management, maybe identity and access management, third one is compute, fourth one is storage, and fifth one is security services. So mainly these are the 5 services which is commonly used in the cloud environment. So you can see here the users or the organization requirement is to networking. So they use VPC to do all the networking kind of stuff, subnetting, internet gateway, net gateway, each and everything you can comes here in VPCs. Now, second one is access management, how you can grant access or how you can revoke access to users, groups, roles in AWS environment. You can do this thing via IAM, identity and access management. Now, third one is, this is most important, is the computations. So if you want to perform any computations task, definitely you can use the EC2 containers as well as Lambda. So these are the 3 services which is used to perform the computation work within the AWS environment. Fourth one is storage. So suppose if you want to store something, maybe it's an object, maybe it's a file, maybe it's a database kind of stuff you want to store there, AWS provide 4 services. Mainly there's a lot more services, but mainly these 4 services. You can use S3 to store your files, your object. RDS is a relational database. EBS is a store to your hard disk or hard drive. And fourth one is DynamoDB. DynamoDB just like non-relational database. So this is used to store different type of data within the AWS cloud environment. And last one is security services. So to protect your data or customers' data within the AWS cloud environment, there's a lot more security solutions provided by AWS, just like inspectors, duty guard, CloudTrail, firewall, shield. So there's a lot more things which is provided by AWS to protect your data, your availability, as well as your confidentialities. So this is how we divided AWS cloud among these 5 categories. So this is all about what are the introductions about AWS cloud environments. In next section, we will discuss about what are the core services provided by AWS, what are the uses of those services, and how we can exploit those services. So thank you so much for watching this video. Stay tuned for coming videos.